All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. My camera's been like working for most of today, so we're gonna cross our fingers that it keeps working. We'll see. I just want to make a quick announcement. Oh, hold on. Juanita, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I was going to tell you, when you have a chance, can you send the slides from chapter 8 back through the email? For some reason, half of them are blanked out and I can't see them.
For chapter 8?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, let me send them right now because I meant to send you guys chapter 9 too, and I think I only sent it to my morning sections. So let me send them both.
Thank you. Yeah, because it's only showing half of the slides. The other half says can display.
Weird.
Thank
Okay,
you.
let me make sure that my PDF is displaying it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is working, it looks like, so it should be okay. Additional classes. All right, they should be coming into your email now. All right. So I just want to make a quick note about the attendance policy. I've been trying to be as lenient as I can be, and I think it's gotten to the point where it's being taken advantage of. So I'm making a note about it. Like, you guys are here on time, but unfortunately, like, I have to make the announcement at the beginning of class. So like, you guys are the ones that hear it. For the attendance policy, again, you don't have to post your name in chat. I look at how much time you spend in class. I have a lot of people that are signing in and leaving. Okay. Or they're just like coming an hour and a half late or something. Okay. If you are in class for less than an hour, it is going to be marked as absent. All right. I'm giving you very hard, definitive times. Okay. If you are in class for less than an hour, it will be absent. If you are in class for less than 2 hours, it'll be late. All right. Now, class typically runs about 2 hours, 2 hours, 20 minutes, right? So, or it's supposed to be 2.5 hours, but usually we do about 2 hours and 20 minutes. Okay. That 20 minutes is not allocated for you to show up late to class. You're going to miss 20 minutes of class and there's important information, right? That 20 minutes is so that when you have connection problems or your computer dies or something like that happens where you have, like, you blank out of the screen for a little bit, it doesn't like cause a points deduction. If you're showing up 20 minutes late and then your computer dies and it shows me that you've only been in class for an hour and 45 minutes, that's not on me. That's on you guys. Okay. It's getting to the point where it's like out of control. So that's why I'm bringing it up again. It's brought up in your course policy, course syllabus policies, as well as the student handbooks. Okay. It is very important for you guys to be in class. If another class gets canceled, that does not mean that bio is canceled. It's week 5. Like, luckily, this class and my next one haven't had as many issues as it seems as my like daytime classes have. But yeah, I don't like being really strict, but it's gotten to the point where I have to be. So just something that I need to bring up. And I'm going to post it in chat because the people that are running late right now are missing this announcement. So nobody can say they didn't know. And this is something I discussed with the registrar also. So it's not out of nowhere. Okay, on to better things. I don't remember if we did these these questions in class, so I'm just going to do them now. Little refresh never hurt. So. Please don't post your name in chat. I just made an important announcement about the attendance policy. People that are coming in, you need to read it. Please don't post your name in chat. If you all post your name in chat, that attendance policy announcement gets buried in it. You don't need to post your name in chat. Please don't post your name in chat. Everything that I send in there gets buried. If people ask me questions, they get buried. I don't check your name because people sign in and leave. You don't need to post your name in chat. I say this at the beginning of every single class. Please do not post your name in chat. Okay. Bones of the vertebral column, irregular bones, right? Short bones are going to be cube shaped. Flat bones are going to be flat. Long bones are going to be long, right? All the names tell you what their shapes are going to be except for irregular, because irregular just means irregular. It can look like a butterfly. There's a really cool bone in your butterfly. All right, 10 more seconds. Yeah, so literally everything except for this last one, okay? Having that curvature of the spine actually makes it harder for it to repair, okay? But the benefits outweigh the costs in this case, okay? So benefits outweigh the costs in this sense. So simplified structure and easier repair, not true. It's more complicated and it's harder for it to repair. But you do get better shock absorption, flexibility and range of motion, stability and balance, and improved support for organs, right? Okay, so starting with your thoracic cage, okay? Now, there's a lot of stuff on here that you guys do not need. All right, there's a lot of blank arrows just because I pulled this diagram straight from FA Davis. We took a lot of this stuff out this semester, okay? So you can just cross out manubrium, body, xiphoid process. I just want you to know this bone as your sternum. Let me make it like yellow so that way it looks happy, or orange. Okay, we have a happy color. Sternum, that's all you need to know for that. You do not need to know manubrium body, xiphoid process, or suprasternal notch. None of that. Okay, I just want you to know that the breastbone is your sternum. Okay, I also want you guys to know your clavicle. Your clavicle is your collarbone. Next, you have your scapula. Your scapula is going to be your shoulder blades. Okay, so your clavicle wraps around to articulate with your scapula. All right. For ribs, you don't need to know true ribs versus false ribs versus floating ribs. Okay. I just want you to know ribs. All right. Don't worry about true ribs versus false ribs versus floating ribs. You don't need costal cartilage. You don't need costal margin. Okay. You should know sternum. You should know clavicle. You should know scapula, and you should know the ribs. Jasmine, do you have a question?
Yes. Can you give me the terms again? You said the clavicle. You said that's the shoulder bone, and the scapula is what?
So the clavicle is going to be your collarbone. So like, if I was like significantly thinner, you could like, I could show you the clavicle, but like if you just touch up here, right, you can feel your clavicle. So that's your clavicle, this thing that you can feel up at the top here. Your scapula is going to be your shoulder blades. So your clavicle like wraps around to articulate with your scapula back here. And it's the same things on the next picture. So if you're not like super clear on what they look like because the ribs are in the way, that's okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So next we're going to take away our rib cage. And we're just going to look at our scapula and our clavicle. Okay. You guys don't need to know these. You don't need to know the glenoid cavity, the coracoid process, or the acromion process. We might talk about the glenoid cavity when we get to the shoulder joint. But like as far as knowing bones for this, I just want you to know clavicle and scapula. Now this is looking at it from like where the rib cage is, like if you're looking at it from the front, okay? But we've taken away that rib cage. And I'll show you this guy, my handy dandy 3D model. Oh no, oh, I took away a bunch of my ribs, that's right. Okay, so if you look, right, on the back of the scapula, we have this wing, okay? But we're looking at it from the front where there's no markings. It's just flat. Okay, so that allows it to like move. Where's the thingy? Fade others. There we go. So you can see, all right, we're looking at it as though we've removed these ribs here. Okay, so we're just looking at the scapula from the front angle here. There would be another scapula here, but I got rid of it. Okay. Then you have your clavicle here, which wraps around to the front, and that's going to make up your collarbone right here. Right.
Professor, just a question. The sternum is the breastbone, right?
Yes, exactly. So the
Thank
sternum
you.
is what you push on during CPR.
Okay, thank you.
Like 10 more seconds.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
What were we supposed to put for what bone articulates with the scapula?
It's
Again?
gonna be your humerus. I realized I like put it out of order on accident. I was about to say it in a second because we're gonna get to the upper limb, but because so last semester we had everybody knowing like the glenoid fossa and all that stuff, and like this semester I just did scapula instead, and I forgot to like put this in a different spot so that it was more clear. But it's gonna be your humerus is the correct answer there.
Thank you.
All right. So the skull, the rib cage, and the vertebral column are all part of your axial skeleton, that center skeleton. Okay. All right. So I'm going to type it in chat, but the bone that articulates scapula to form shoulder joint humerus. Okay. So for your upper limb, you don't need a chromium process. You don't need coracoid process. You don't need Omicron process or process. Okay. The only things I want you guys to know from your arm are your humerus, which is going to make up your upper arm, and then your radius and your ulna.
I'm sorry, Professor, but your camera keep freezing.
My camera does. I have
I don't know if
4
it's
bars.
mine, but it's like sounding like robotic.
Maybe your connection. Maybe try leaving and coming back in. Unless, I mean, I can't really like leave the class and come back in, or it'll like cancel the recording and everything that you guys answered so far. And it looks like I have. It's mine. Okay. I don't really know what to do about that because I have 4 bars. So, let me. Because, hold on. Let me try switching to a different computer, maybe. I have to grab Kevin's computer. Hold on 1 second. Oh, okay. Other people are saying that it's fine. So, and this is the first time hearing this class. Like, so just try leaving and coming back. That's the best I can suggest because I've got 4 bars, so I don't really know. Yeah. So, Alyssa, do you have a question?
Oh no, I don't. Sorry.
You're fine. So 3 bones that you need to know: your humerus, your radius, and your ulna. Okay. Humerus is going to be your upper arm. Your radius and your ulna are going to make up your lower arm. Now, your radius and your ulna, all right? For your radius, it is always going to be found on the thumb side of your body, okay? The other way you can tell which one the radius is, it has like a triangle at the bottom, okay? Has like a triangle at the bottom here. Now, your radius, let me delete this guy. Now your radius is always on your thumb side, right? So if I'm in correct anatomical position, my radius is also going to be on the lateral side of my elbow. All right. Your ulna, on the other hand, your ulna is always going to be on your pinky side. Okay. Ulna is always on the pinky side. It is also always on the medial side of your elbow. Okay. Always on this medial side. Now, why am I talking about this? Because when you go and you flip your hand over, right? And you can actually like feel this if you feel this in like you put your hand here when you turn your hand. Okay. Your bones do not move. Okay. Your radius still stays on the same side as your thumb, and it still stays on the lateral side of your elbow. What happens is your fingers crisscross. Or sorry, your bones in your arm are going to crisscross like if you cross your fingers. Okay? What I mean by that, if you look at this slide here, okay? So they're lined up perfectly like this. They're perfectly parallel, right? Then when you flip them over, the radius stays on the same side of your thumb. The ulna stays on the same side of your pinky. They just cross over. Okay? So for that, like which of these is found on the side of your thumb? It's gonna be the radius. Okay, your radius is always on the thumb side of your wrist. Now looking at your hand, okay, again, we're gonna go in and we're gonna label our radius and our ulna to get into the habit of it. There's two ways you can tell which one the radius is. First one is radius is going to be found on the same side of the thumb. Our thumb's here, so our radius is this guy. The other way, looking at that shape, the radius has that like triangle at the bottom. Okay, so that's going to be our radius. Now for our hand, you guys don't need to know the different parts of the phalanges. Okay, you already know the terminology distal and proximal, but if I point to the phalanges and I say what bone's this, I'm not gonna ask you guys which specific phalange it is. I'm gonna ask you guys is the phalanges, right? So you can go ahead and label your radius and ulna. We've already learned the wrist region is called the carpal region. Okay, so you have your carpals here. Then you're gonna have your metacarpals. Your metacarpals are gonna make up your palm region. Okay. So metacarpals make up your palm region. Then you have your phalanges. Now, each one of your fingers is going to have 3 phalanges, except for your thumb. Your thumb only has 2. All right. So this is going to be your thumb. And on your diagram, if you're confused which one's the thumb, look for the one that has the 2 phalanges. All right. Now your digits are going to be named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but they're going to be written in Roman numerals. And just because in my first semester I got told that people weren't super familiar with Roman numerals, I'm going to type them out. So 1, you have 1 eye. 2 eyes is 2. 3 eyes, 3. 4 eyes, just kidding. That's not anything. Okay? Because that would make too much sense. So instead, we have V for 5. If you put an I before the V, that is the number before 5, aka 4. If you put a V or an I after V, that is the number after 5, which is 6. Okay. You put 2 numbers out or 2 I's after V, that's going to be 7. 3 I's after V, that would be 8. Then you would think, 9 should be 4 I's after V. It's not. Okay. Same weird notation. X is going to be 10. An I before the X is going to be the number before 10, which is 9. An I after the X is going to be the number after 10, which is 11. Okay. And then 2 I's after X is 12. You guys will only need to go up to 12 in this class. You'll see the numbers again when we get to cranial nerves. That's why I went all the way up to 12. Right now, you only need 1 through 5, but okay. So those are Roman numerals. Roman numerals. This is another picture of the hand. You guys do not need to know the different names of the carpals. Don't worry about that. Jasmine, do you have a question?
Yes. What did you say the phalanges was? I got the metacarpals and the carpal, but I missed the phalanges.
Your fingers.
Oh, just fingers.
Yep, they're just the fingers.
All right, thank you.
PH sounds like F, so like phalange finger, I guess. I don't know.
I missed it
Juanita?
too. Yeah, the marticles. What was that?
Oh, the metacarpals? Those
Yeah,
are going to be the ones that make up your like palm.
and then the
So you
carpals
have,
is the wrist.
yep, exactly. So your carpals are like down here, your metacarpals are here, and then your phalanges are making up your digits.
Thank you.
Dude, no worry. No worries. Sorry. Running out of steam. I still got another class to teach after this. All right. So, yes, your humerus is going to form your upper arm. Okay. Your ulna is going to be found in your lower arm on the side of your pinky. Okay. Your femur and your tibia, those are going to be found in your leg. We're about to talk about them in a second. Okay, so looking at your pelvic girdle. Now, your pelvic girdle is made up of 3 bones together. Okay, your ilium, your ischium, and your pubis. There we go. All right, so last semester I had like a diagram that had like a bunch of like shading on this and whatnot, and like some arrows coming in, and it just was really confusing. So this semester's diagram is a lot more like black and white, so hopefully that makes it easier to label. I don't know, you guys can like shade it. But so starting with your sacrum, if you remember, we talked about the sacrum when we talked about the vertebral column, right? The sacrum is going to be that bottom part, those 5 fused vertebrae together, okay? Now your sacrum is going to connect to what's called your os coxae. All right, your os coxae is going to be 3 different bones fused together. So this whole structure here, if I can get my annotation thing going, this whole structure here, that is your os coxae, right? You have 3 bones that make it up. The first one is going to be your ilium. Your ilium is this big wing, flared wing portion of your hip. Okay, so if you like feel your hip bones, it's your ilium that you're feeling. Okay. Next, you have your pubis, which is going to make up that front ridge. So pubis, think like pubic region. That's where it kind of comes from. Okay. And lastly, these bottom hoops here, that's going to be your ischium. Now, in between your 2 pubis bones, you have this thing called your symphysis pubis, aka a pubic symphysis. Same thing. Okay. And lastly, you have your sacroiliac joint. Okay. So when we name joints, we name them based on the two bones that articulate together. So your sacrum and your ilium. All right. So sacroiliac joint is between your sacrum and your ilium. So you can just circle it like that. And then the coccyx is this guy down here, the little guy down there. Now, looking at it from 3D, because it is like, I mean, your whole body's 3D structured, but I feel like the pelvis specifically is nice to see in 3D. Okay. It kind of looks like a bowl, right? Take this stuff away. So it kind of looks like a bowl here. All right. This whole thing here, this big winged flared portion, that's your ilium. It goes down to like about here, I believe, maybe a little higher, kind of like here-ish. All right. So that's your ilium. Then you have it fused with your pubis, and your pubis is going to be like this front region here. Okay. So this area here is your pubis. And then this bottom hoop portion here, I always think of it as like the earlobes, but like, I mean, nobody's ears are really gauged like this. So I don't know why I think of it that way, but I do. This is going to be your ischium. Okay, so ilium, ischium, pubis. In between your two pubic bones, you have your pubic symphysis. Between your ilium and your sacrum, you have your iliosacral joint. Okay. All right. So for which bone articulates with the pelvis to form the hip joint, that's going to be your femur. Femur articulates with pelvis. Okay. Now, because it's like a 3D structure and it's like very complicated, you know what I mean, to like put in a 2D image, there's a whole bunch of different images on here for you. They're all showing the same things, basically. Okay. It's just whichever one works best for you. You can see here your sacroiliac joint is going to be between your sacrum and your ilium. All right. Sacroiliac joint between your sacrum and your ilium. This is what it looks like from a lateral view. The top of the femur is going to fit into this big cup-like structure here called your acetabulum, but we'll get to that when we get to joints. So don't worry about knowing these measurements. They come into play when you talk about obstetrics, but that's beyond the scope of this course, so don't worry about them. Ten more seconds. Yeah, so 3 bones fused together to form the pelvis. Okay. Juanita.
I'm sorry. You said the ilium, the bottom question that says together they form. What do they form all together?
The os coccyx. So this word that's up here.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. All right. Do you mind muting if you're all set?
Oh, thank you.
Mhm. All right. So next we're going to talk about the leg. Okay. You don't have to put a star on the head of the femur. I mean, you can. It's just this big ball up here. Okay. That head of the femur is going to be what makes up the hip. But so the femur is going to be this giant bone that makes up your thigh. Remember that region is called your femoral region, right? This is why, because your femur is there, right? So your femur is the strongest bone in the whole body and the hardest to fracture. So strongest. All right. So if you like, you can feel your femur. It's pretty big. Okay. You don't need to know the specific parts of the femur. Like you don't need to know the trochanters, the epicondyles. You're good. Okay. Just know the femur. Next, we have our tibia and our fibula. So right underneath that femur, as well as our patella. So we already know our patella is our kneecap, right? Patella region, because we have a patella. All right. So the patella is going to be that kneecap. Next, we're going to look at our tibia and our fibula. All right. So our tibia is going to be this like T-shaped bone here. All right. So that T-shaped bone there. That bone is going to be the one that bears the most weight in the body. A lot of people get this confused. They think, wait a minute, but the femur is the longest and strongest bone in the body, right? You just told us that. Yes, but it makes sense if you think about it, okay? The tibia is carrying all of the weight of the femur as well as the femur, okay? So the femur has the weight of everything above it, right? Same thing with the tibia, but the femur is also above the tibia. So the tibia is bearing the most weight in the body, okay? Right next to the tibia, you have your fibula. Right, your fibula is like a really thin chopstick-like bone. Now, your fibula doesn't actually bear any weight. The fibula is just like an emotional support bone. It's just there to like help out stabilize the ankle. It doesn't bear any weight in the body, which is why it's so thin. All right, as a rule of thumb, if you look at the ends of the bones that are bearing a lot of weight, they're pretty wide, right? You want to like have a wide stance to hold up the weight. The fibula's head, very, very small because it's not holding up weight. It's just there to support the ankle. Okay, so tibia bears the most weight. Fibula does not bear any weight. Okay, so for those fill in the blanks. The tibia, that T-shaped bone, right? It has that big head to it. That is going to bear the most weight in the body. The fibula does not bear any weight. All right, so looking at your foot and ankle. Luckily, the foot has a very similar structure to the hand. Okay, so we already have a leg up. We already have the basics down. We just have to change the words out a little. Okay. Starting with your tarsals. You do not need to know the names of your individual tarsals. Take these out. Okay. Just know your ankle is made up of your tarsals. Okay. Metatarsals, just like your metacarpals make up your palms, your metatarsals are going to make up the soles of your feet. Okay. So that's going to make up those soles of the feet. And lastly, just like they make up your digits, like your fingers, they're also going to make up your toes, your phalanges. Okay. And just like in your fingers, All of them have 3 except for your thumb. Same thing in your foot. All of your toes have 3 phalanges except for your big toe, which only has 2. Okay. So tarsals make up your ankles, metatarsals make up the soles of your feet, phalanges are going to make up your digits, aka your toes. Okay. You have 3 phalanges, except for with your big one, which is only going to have 2. Okay. And what was the last thing? The hallux. Your big toe is really special. It has its own name. It is called the hallux. Okay. So the big toe is the hallux. Yep. Ah, there we go. All right.
Professor Woodruff, I was talking about the metatarsals and stuff. I get the part about the big toe. I was talking about the phalanges and the metatarsal.
Okay. Ankle, metatarsals, ankle, sole. Ten more seconds. Yeah, great job. The skull is going to protect the brain and sensory organs, right? Where's my little... We got 100%. Not everybody answered, but everybody that did answer got it right. Making progress. Okay, let's do like 10 more seconds. Yeah, so calcium and phosphorus, okay? By storing and releasing minerals like calcium and phosphorus. Okay, hormones. If you see hormones, you're talking about the endocrine system. Okay, chances are if you see hormones, you are talking about the endocrine system. especially blood sugar levels. That doesn't have to do with the skeletal system. Electrical impulses, that's the nervous system. Okay. Digestive enzymes, digestive system. Okay. And I have a little treat for you guys. Get excited. All right, so that's my little treat for you guys. I was like, I mentioned the like Hannah Montana song or something like that, and I was like, oh, I should go find that, and then I found this song instead. I was like, oh, this is great. So far everybody's liked it. So hopefully it helps. I don't know. And if it doesn't, you never have to listen to it again. It's okay. Let's see. But I feel like it's so early to go on break. Yeah, let's start on chapter 9 and then we'll go on break. Okay. So let's wrong button. Really not put chapter 9 in yet? First one. Hold on 1 second. Cool. So next we're going to talk about joints. All right. So, well, first I have MCQs, but I don't want to talk about joints. Okay, like 10 more seconds.
Professor, real quick, I'm sorry. And our picture is the opposite way, right? Just because I think I labeled it wrong. So the fibula is the one that bears no weight, right?
Yeah, so the fibula is the skinny guy.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So this is a picture of the other side of the leg, but all right. Yeah, so your tibia, the other way that I look at it, or the way that I like recognize it always, tibia has the T. So you can see like there's a big T shape to it. Okay, because it's bearing all that weight. It has a pretty wide head. I'm gonna send out the song, don't worry. I'm gonna send it like with my email. I always put like the YouTube links at the bottom that I use, as well as like my YouTube videos, but yeah. That way you guys can add it to your like Spotify's or whatever and just listen to it on repeat, right? I don't know. I feel like it's not that bad in the way of like science songs. So I'll try and see if I can find one for muscles too. No promises, but all right. Like 10 more seconds. Yeah. So these are your phalanges, right? Your phalanges make up your fingers. Okay, so these are your digits themselves. All right. Metacarpals are going to make up your palms. Carpals are your wrist. So carpal, metacarpals, phalanges. Okay. Metatarsals, those are going to be making up your like sole of your foot. Okay, just like your tarsals make up your ankles. Okay, so joints are going to be classified according to how movable they are and the material binding them. Now, when I made this table, my thought process was like, oh, I'll just like leave one out and they have to figure out which one is left out. Okay. But I realized in hindsight, it's a little confusing. So I'm just going to outline which one gets left out. All right. So for this first one, they are called fixed joints, fibrous joints, or synarthroses. Okay. So all three names, you are responsible for knowing all three names of all three types of joints. Okay. So we could call them fixed joints, we could call them fibrous joints, or we could call them synarthroses. Any three of those. Okay. Fibrous joints, just like the name implies, are going to be connected by fibers. Okay. Example given, the ones between the skull. So like your skull bones, right? When you're born, your skull bones like move over one another. And it's for two reasons. First one, childbirth. Okay. That is a big head to come out of a very small hole. So childbirth is one reason. They like slide over to make the baby squish through. If you've ever seen like brand new newborn babies, their heads look a little funky. Okay. The second reason, our brains are not like fully developed until we're like they're not grown to the full size until we're like 12 or 13 ish. By the time you're like 12 or 13, I think your brain's like at 90% of the size it's going to be or something like that, but still growing. Okay. Eventually, you do not want your skull bones to keep moving though, right? So they fuse together. Okay. And when they fuse together, they form these fibrous joints so that they do not move. You don't want your skull bones to move, so it makes sense. Okay. Semi-movable joints, on the other hand. Semi-movable joints, maybe I'll just use a highlighter for this. Semi-movable joints are going to be joined by cartilage. Okay. They are also going to be called cartilaginous joints or amphiarthroses. We've seen 2 examples of this in chapter 8. First one, pubic symphysis. All right, so that little like cartilage joint between your 2 pubis bones. Okay, it has a little bit of movement, but not a ton. And this is for 2 reasons. Childbirth, again, right? We want to have a little bit of flexibility in there. And what walking. Okay, when you're walking, it makes it more accommodating. The other example that we've seen in chapter 8, intervertebral discs. Okay, intervertebral discs are also examples of cartilaginous joints. And the last type of joint we have are going to be freely movable joints. Okay, freely movable joints, also called diarthroses or synovial joints. We'll go with like light blue for this one. Okay, that ended up looking green because green and blue, or yellow and blue make green. Orange. There we go. So, freely movable joints, synarthroses, or sorry, diarthroses, and synovial joints, all the same thing. Okay, they are going to be connected by a fluid-filled joint capsule, and we're going to talk about the structure of that in a little bit. Pretty much every joint that you can think of is going to be a synovial joint. So in this example, there's the knee, but the elbow, the hip, the joints on your fingers, almost any joint you can think of is going to be a synovial joint. Okay, these are the most numerous and versatile. So, all right, there's a whole bunch of different ones. Juanita.
You said for the first one, fixed joints, an example was a skull or childbirth, both of them?
Skull. So
Just skull. Childbirth was the second one.
No, so childbirth is just like why we have joints there rather than your skull being like one big bone to start with.
Okay.
I was just explaining why these joints are there rather than like it, like you see how your sacrum is all fused together? That's just like one bony structure. Your skull, on the other hand, actually has like joints in between the skull bones. It's not like one bone that's, or like one bony structure that has like different areas. It's different bones that are stuck together. Yeah. Latavia.
What did you say the synovial joints were connected by?
A fluid-filled joint capsule.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I'll leave this up for another minute. All right. So again, different examples. Well, I mean, this goes pretty much a stereotypical example for fibrous joints. Cartilaginous joints, we're seeing those intervertebral discs. Synovial joints, something like your hip. Okay, let's do like 10 more seconds. Yeah, so a fixed joint is going to be bound by fibers. Okay, let's do like 10 more seconds. Yeah, so fibers, connective tissue, okay? Immovable, both things that are indicating fixed joints, right? A fixed joint is also called a synarthrosis. The way that I remember it, like synthesis, two things coming together in a fixed joint, like comes together, it doesn't really like move. I don't know. Very like reaching, but maybe it helps. Amphiarthrosis kind of sounds like ambiguous, which is like, I don't know, not like solid, right? So amphiarthrosis, semi-movable. And then diarthrosis, I got nothing for. It's just the other one. Diarthrosis is freely movable. Ball and socket joint, that is a type of a synovial joint. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the structure of synovial joints. So starting with the joint capsule. Okay, the joint capsule is going to be this like light purple thing on the surrounding that joint. Okay, so each bone is going to have that periosteum that we talked about in chapter 7, right? That membrane that covers the bone. All right, and extending from that periosteum, you have your joint capsule. The joint capsule is going to encase this whole thing. Inside of your joint capsule, you have this like dark purple line. Oh, sorry, let me highlight to fill in the blanks. Okay. The joint capsule is going to be a sheet of connective tissue that encloses the joint cavity. All right. Inside of that joint capsule, you have your synovial membrane. All right, so it's going to be that dark purple piece on here. The only reason I'm not outlining it is because I feel like once I start outlining or like highlighting on this diagram itself, it kind of starts to get messy. So, but the synovial membrane is going to be a moist, slippery membrane that lines the inside of the joint capsule, and it secretes what's called synovial fluid. Okay, we're going to talk more about synovial fluid in a second, but you can see the synovial membrane is that dark purple piece inside here. Okay. Now, joint cavity, just like you have sinus cavities, which are those spaces, right? Those spaces that are inside your bones that hold mucus and whatnot. Your joint cavity is going to be a space between your bones that's going to hold fluid, right? The specific fluid that it holds is called synovial fluid. Or wait, is that the, no. Synovial fluid. Synovial fluid is going to be like an egg white consistency. It's not super watery, right? Because if it was super watery, the bones would just kind of like do whatever they felt like doing. The synovial fluid feels like eggs whites. So it's nice and slippery, but it's still a little thick. Okay. This is going to help lubricate the joint, as well as nourish the cartilage and contain phagocytes to remove debris. Now, phagocytes are just like vacuum cleaners of the body, right? They're like going to remove dead cells, waste products, like viruses that have been killed, bacteria that's been killed, stuff like that. So phagocytes are just like vacuum cleaners. We don't really talk about them too much. They like the terminology comes up, but it's not like we're gonna like ask you what a phagocyte does. So if you hear phagocytes, just think vacuum cleaner. All right. Next, you have articular cartilage. Articular cartilage we talked about in chapter 7, right? Articular cartilage is going to be found on those areas where bones rub against each other. Now, if you're sitting there and you're like, wait a minute, you just told us that they're surrounded by fluid and that they don't rub against each other. Yes. In an ideal world, they don't rub against each other. But if they do, on occasion, brush against each other, the articular cartilage is there to help prevent like the bones themselves rubbing on each other. Okay, so it's going to prevent or permit friction-free movement. It allows them to like brush against each other without damaging each other. Okay. Lastly, you have ligaments. Ligaments are going to be tough cords of connective tissue that's going to bind the whole thing together. Okay, so you see how on the outermost area there's that white thing? That's going to be the ligament. Okay. And we'll go ahead and take a break here. So that way you guys have the slide up so you can finish writing whatever down you need to. So I will go ahead and set the timer up. And I will see you guys in 10 minutes. Okay, it's fine, whatever. 11 minutes. So. right, cool. So next we're going to talk about bursa. So bursa. Oh, I have to kill. Don't worry. So with bursa, okay. Like use socks for this in my last class, and it was like showing up for everybody my like Kevin's like socks. They're Kevin's, but yeah. So the difference between joints and bursa, okay? Now think of a joint as like one of those like finger traps that you see at like arcades and whatnot. Okay. So we have our two bones going inside the joint, right? Bursa, on the other hand, hang out on the outside of the joint like that. Okay. So they're not like in the joint. I have to like hold it with my fingers because like I'm not magic, but they're like sitting on top of the joint. Right. So the example that I use when you like sprain your knee or whatever, right? You wrap the ace bandage around your knee and then you put like ice on it. Okay. In that analogy, the ace bandage is going to be the joint capsule and the ice pack is the bursa, right? The ice pack is sitting outside. The whole point of bursa is to like make sure that muscles and tendons aren't like rubbing over bony prominences causing damage. All right. So they're like little cushions to help with joints. So some joints contain bursa, which are small sacs filled with synovial fluid. Bursa reside in. Sorry, Kritoshka's sitting on my packet, so I didn't want to like take it from her, but chill it. Okay, so some joints contain bursa. Bursa reside in areas. Yep. Some examples of joints that are going to contain bursa: the knee, the shoulder, and the elbow. Okay, so these all contain bursa in them. Because if you look at the elbow, right, there's a whole bunch of things that stick out of the shoulder. My bad. The shoulder. Okay, there's a whole bunch of things that stick off of your scapula here. All right. So you don't want those to like rub and bang into your humerus as you're like moving around. Just take it. Okay, let's do like 10 more seconds. Yeah, so synovial joints are freely movable. Okay. So synovial joints are freely movable. You're blocking the camera. This is Kritoshka, by the way. So 10 more seconds. Yeah, so most of the joints in the body are going to be synovial joints. Okay? So synovial joints, we've heard it over and over again, right? So it's probably important. Synovial joints, freely movable joints, diarthroses, all the same thing. Right? Your elbow, your knee, your hip, your shoulder, all of these joints that we're about to talk about right now, synovial joints. Right? Yes, the others are important to know, but the main joint that you should be familiar with is your synovial joints, or are your synovial joints. Okay. There's 6 types of synovial joints. All right. I'm going to talk about them more in detail, and then I have like a short little 2-minute video that shows like the movements of each of them. So, starting with a pivot joint. Okay. A pivot joint is going to rotate. So, examples of this. So, I'll show you in a second what I mean by that, but allows bones to rotate over one another. Okay. Examples of pivot joints between your first and second vertebrae.
Professor, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I'm typing it out on screen. That's why I stopped for a second. I want to focus. But
Thank you.
so, yeah, you're welcome. So pivot joints, you have 2 examples. There's one between your first and second vertebrae that's going to allow you to turn your head no. The second one is your radial-ulnar joint. Okay, and we're going to talk about this more when we get to your elbow, like what I mean by that. But basically, your radius and your ulna, there's like a little loop of a ligament that the ulna is like able to rotate in, and we'll go more into the mechanics in a little bit. Okay, but basically, what happens? I always use like a Diet Coke bottle to explain it. Oh, you guys see this with it? Yeah. So if you have like a circle, okay, the pivot joint literally just rotates like this. Okay, so you have one thing that sticks up out of another, and then you have a loop, and it spins like this. Okay, so in the case of the first and second vertebrae, you can see there's a thing that sticks up from the second vertebrae into the first one, and the first one spins around it like this. That allows you to shake your head no. Okay, the radial ulnar joints, you have like a loop, and we'll talk more about those when we get to the elbow, because like it's better to see it. So let me copy this so that it's in chat. Okay, so type it out in chat too. Next, we have hinge joints. So just like doors open and close, you also have hinge joints that do this back and forth extension here. Okay, just like the hinge of a door. So some examples of this: your knee, your elbow, your joints between your different fingers. Okay, so they only do this back and forth movement. Okay, back and forth. Same thing with your knee, but I'm not gonna like stand up and like turn my camera down so you can see my knee. All right, back and forth. Juanita, do you have another question? You unmuted.
No, I'm sorry. I forgot to turn it off.
Okay. That's okay. I just wanted to make sure we were good. Okay. So elbow, knee, finger joints, interphalangeal joints. So inter meaning between, phalangeal, phalanges. Okay. You guys are getting a lot of hand motions from me today. Oh, I have my camera back on. Phalangeal Okay, so hinge, elbow, knee, interphalangeal joints. Gliding joints. Okay, so I stole my daughter's cubes. Don't tell her. Okay, so if you remember, right, short bones are cube shaped. So for example, your carpals are cube shaped. In gliding joints, the cubes slide over one another, just like this. Okay, so I was trying to find these earlier. Kevin was making fun of me. He's like, you're teaching adults, right? You don't need blocks. I'm like, yes, but I'm using them for something. Okay, so gliding joints, they slide over one another, just like this. Okay, so your carpals, these are short bones, right? They're cube-shaped bones. They slide over one another just like this. Okay, don't worry about the articular processes of the vertebrae. We didn't talk. I don't want you guys to get those confused with the intervertebral discs. Yeah. And we didn't talk about the articular processes, but yes.
So, Professor, I'm sorry. So it's flat bones slide over one another?
Yeah, so they're like the flat surfaces of the bones. I see. Okay. So it's like flat surfaces. So flat bone surfaces. But up here it says flat bones. They're like I said, they're the cube-shaped bones, right? You stick them on top of each other, they have like the flat surfaces. But I see where flat bones. But the only flat bones really you have, I guess, like your scapula would slide over your ribs. So in that case, it would be flat bones sliding over one another. That would be considered a gliding joint. But it very generally is just flat surfaces, right? So like flat bones aren't the only ones with flat surfaces. But that's, of course, to fill in the blank. Nobody's pointed that out to me yet. You're the first one. But yes, it's flat bones slide over one another. Let me make a note to fix that. Stop. Okay. Next, we have ball and socket joints. Okay, ball and socket joints are going to offer the widest range of motion. Okay, it's exactly what it sounds like. You have the ball, you have a socket. Goes inside there and allows you to do a whole bunch of things. Okay, so examples are going to include your shoulder and your hip. Those are the only two that we have in the body, really. All right. So ball and socket joints, ball of one bone fits into the head of another. Well, it like moves a lot. So your shoulder moves a lot, your hip moves a lot, right? We're going to talk more about that in a minute. Oh, let me type in the chat too. Gliding joints, carpals, tarsals. Okay. And then ball and socket. Ball and socket joint, shoulder and hip. Okay. Next, you have your saddle joints. Now, your saddle joint, there's only one in your body. It's between the base of your thumb and your carpals. Okay. Specifically, your trapezium is a type of carpal. You guys don't need to know the names of the carpals. Okay. So saddle joint, base of the thumb. All right. So the saddle joint is found right here. Now, the saddle joint allows you to move your thumb back and forth like this, as well as to touch the tips of your other fingers. Okay. So saddle joint moves your thumbs back and forth and from side to side, like that. Okay. You notice you can't do that with any of your other fingers, right? That is the only place that you find the saddle joint in your body. Okay, or at least in like human bodies. And it's named because it looks like a saddle. condyloid joints. Condyloid joints are kind of similar to ball and socket joints, but their cup is like more shallow. So you don't have as much like, I don't know, flow, whatever, okay? It's a little bit more restricted in the movement. So an example of this is the radius with the carpal bones. So like the base of your wrist here, okay? So you can still do like this side to side motion. You can do back and forth, and you can do some like at angles, right? But I'm not as like able to like do this kind of circular motion like I am with my elbow or shoulder, not elbow, shoulder, okay? Nobody go to anybody and tell them that your anatomy instructors that this was your elbow, because it's not your elbow, it's your shoulder. Okay. So distal end of the radius with the carpal bones of the wrist. Okay. Also with the joints at the bases of your fingers. Okay. They allow you to do things like this, but okay. This is the one that I always think of because I think it shows pretty well like the movement's pretty flexible, but it's not as flexible as like in your shoulder. Okay. So condyloid joint is going to be radius with carpals. Okay. And then a little video. No, 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 no. What? Sorry, for some reason it took me to their like YouTube page when I went to like close out. I need to become a real professional. Just kidding. Okay. Okay, so let's do like 10 more seconds. Yeah, so the ball and socket joint is going to offer the widest range of motion. Okay. So like your shoulder and your hip. Now with joint movements, okay, joint movements are really nice to like show in person, but I think this guy does a really good job of it, honestly. And he does a really nice explanation for all of them too. It's like 6 minutes longish. The only thing is he flips inversion and eversion, kind of. So ignore explanations for those, but everything else is pretty good. And he doesn't do protraction and retraction, which you guys are responsible for doing. So I'll show you the video and then we'll go through it. Deanna, I know that the video wasn't working for you on the last one. Just check to see if like you switch the tabs. Otherwise, just like leave and then come back really quick and see if that fixes it. Okay. So going through them together, flexion, extension, hyperextension. Okay. So flexion, bicep curls. Extension, extend back out. Okay. Flexion, extension. Hyperextension, when you're bending beyond that 180-degree angle. So if you look at your palms, okay. Flexion, you're reducing that angle. Extension, back to that 180 degrees. Hyperextension goes past that normal 180-degree angle. Okay. Flexion, extension, hyperextension. Dorsiflexion, in your foot, it's a little different. Okay. You have dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. Plantar flexion, think of it as like stepping on plants. Okay. So you're stomping down on plants. Dorsiflexion, you're pointing the toes upwards. So dorsiflexion, plantar flexion. Abduction and adduction. AB, you are taking it away. You are abducting. Okay. So abduction, taken away from the midline. Get in the habit of saying abduction versus adduction when you say these things. Okay. Because when you're talking, right, abduction sounds a lot like adduction. So abduction, you are taking something away. When you abduct something, you take it away. Abduction. Okay. Adduction, when you are adding, right? So adduction, add to the midline. This falls in the category of, if you can remember both, great. If you can only remember one acronym, pick your favorite one, and then the other one is the other, right? So abduction, abduct, take away. Adduction, add, adds. Okay. Circumduction. If you take a pen, okay. Of course, I don't have like a red pen, it's a black pen. All right. And I go like this. I draw a circle on my wall. That is circumduction. This is different than rotation. Okay. So circumduction, you're drawing a circle. Rotation is different because, why is this like this? What just happened? Okay. So rotation is different because it's happening around a specific axis. Okay. So this uses your foot to explain it. I always like to use my arm. All right. So if I take a pen, put it in my shoulder. Okay. Have my hand. If I rotate my palm towards the midline, right? Coming out my shoulder, I am rotating around the axis that my pen makes. Same thing with external rotation. When I rotate outwards, I'm still rotating around this axis that my pen makes. So internal rotation, external rotation. Okay. This shows it around the top of your, not your shoulder, your hip. Okay. There would be an axis coming out that top of the leg there. Pronation versus supination. So supination, you're making soup bowls. Okay. Pronation, you're facing your hands down. Somebody told me my last semester, maybe it was the semester before, they remember pronation as like showing off your nails. Okay. So supination, pronation. Oh, wait. Yes. Pronation down, supination up. Inversion versus eversion. Okay. Inversion, the soles of your feet point towards each other. Eversion, they point outwards. So in, they point in. Out, or eversion, they point out. Last one, he doesn't go over this one. Protraction versus retraction. Okay. Protraction, you're pushing your jaw forward. Okay. Retraction, you're pulling it back. Okay. So don't screenshot that and make me a meme. But retraction is going to be like when you give yourself a double chin. Okay. Last semester, I didn't do that move on camera, so I didn't have to worry about it. But let's do like 10 more seconds. Yeah, so the bending of your elbow to decrease that angle would be considered flexion. Okay, so you're flexing, right? Okay. Ah, I got like half of you. Okay, so I'll take it. Circumcision. What is circumcision? I can tell you it's not a joint movement, right?
It's something. It definitely ain't.
So,
Oh,
I'm gonna
yes.
make sure we're reading the question. Okay, circumduction is moving the body in a circle. When Dr. A wrote this question, I even texted her and I was like, LOL, you made a typo. And she's like, no. That was intentional. It's to make sure that everybody's reading the question. I was like, oh.
That was a good one.
That was Dr. A's. So she gets all the credit. Okay, let's see. We have 5 tables. Okay. No. So 10 more seconds. Yeah, so movement, turning your palm downwards. Okay, pronation, turning your palm down. All right, so that's where we're gonna leave off for lecture material. All right, so I have an in-class activity. I'm gonna split you guys into tables, okay? I'm gonna post the link in chat. It's a crossword puzzle that you guys work on as teams. Now, whichever table completes it first, I'm gonna write down your names and I'm gonna bring candy. Okay, so opportunity to win. Plus, if you work on it quicker, you get done quicker, right? You can go home quicker. Well, you are home. Anyways, if you happen to be on your phone and you can't type in, you can still participate. All right, you can still unmute yourself at your table and talk to people at your table and be like, I know the answer to this one, or like, you know what I mean? Like, you can still talk, you can still participate. All right. If somebody at your table isn't participating, you can tell me they're not participating. So they won't get candy. Registration should be open though, so you guys should be able to like click in. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and open it up. Okay. All right. So there is a winning team, table 2, but there were like 10 people that joined that table. So everybody gets candy this time. But next time, please join the correct table. But congratulations, guys. Angela was like on the table by herself for a while there. Like we had groups of 3, and then there was just like a powerhouse team of like, what is this, like 9 people on it. So you guys did great. I'm not saying you didn't, but it's a race to the finish. Make things fair, right? So okay. So that's where we will leave off for the night. And I will see you guys on. Oh, wait, I just wanted to show you one thing really quickly. So in my thing that I'm gonna send out this week, I do have this like if you're like me and you just to click through things and you're like learning, this is nice because it has like a whole bunch of clicky things and it goes through them and shows you them and all of the movements and whatnot. So yeah, just I'm gonna send it out with everything. If you like this kind of stuff. Yeah. And that's all I have for you guys. Let me put you back in room mode in case there's questions. Juanita.
So, Professor, the only thing we got to do this week by the 5th is 2 quizzes, right?
I think it's 3. I think it's 6, 7, and 8 that are due.
Okay.
I have to double check about that, but I believe it's 6, 7, and 8.
Okay, and that's all we got to do this week, right?
Yes, unless you have your course project due.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Good night. So we can leave?
Have a good night. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to end class in about 2 seconds here.
All right.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.